Hello and welcome to the latest in my series of Cambridge iGCSE English Language Exam Top Tips, helping you prepare for the exams next month. So today's tip number 9, is focusing on descriptive and narrative composition on paper 2. Now, these tasks are worth you do either the descriptive or the narrative composition, but whichever one you choose, it's worth a quarter of your overall grade. And because it's quite challenging often for students and it's worth so many marks, I thought I'd share some pointers, reminders, and some advice on how to produce effective responses. So my first piece of advice is to before you even begin, think about and make sure you understand clearly the difference between writing to describe and writing to narrate, and that you're writing for the correct purpose. It's really important that you think about that, you're clear on that distinction, because if you're writing a descriptive piece, it's really important that you don't slip into narrative. This is one of the pitfalls of writing the descriptive piece. You want to keep a clear focus on figurative language and sensory imagery. That will help you stay on track. Okay, so that's my first piece of advice. Another piece of advice I'd like to share with you all is that imagine you're describing for the descriptive piece. Think about it as if it's like a short section of film, not a static image, but a section of film where there's some movement and some varieties in focus, and you are creating a sense of chronological, like temporal or spatial movement. You're moving through the scene or moving through time, but it's not a story. Be careful that you do not start to tell the story. And if you keep your focus on figurative language elements and sensory imagery, you should help yourself to avoid falling into that trap. Now, let's take a closer look at some descriptive techniques that you can use for your composition, descriptive pieces. Key ingredients, metaphors, comparing things using directly, representing something as something else. So the sun as a furnace, for example. Similes are less powerful than metaphors and use the words as or like to compare two things. Personification, another key technique there. Hyperbole, deliberate exaggeration for effect. Pathetic fallacy, which is has some similarities with personification, but giving human-like characteristics or attributes to the elements is quite often a feature of pathetic fallacy, and it helps to create mood and atmosphere. Gothic writers love this, so that's a great place to source ideas and imagery for this technique. Use of precise nouns, adjectives, verbs, and adverbs. So general nouns, adjectives, verbs, adverbs do not have a place in descriptive or narrative writing. Think precise words, so not walking, but striding, strolling, sauntering. Think precise words. Again, for looking, we've got staring or peering or glaring or gazing. Be precise in your use of language. Okay, so those are examples of verbs, but we also want to use precise nouns, adjectives, and adverbs. Oxymoron is another technique that can be helpful. So apparent contradictions, words which seem to be opposed in meaning. Juxtaposition, contrasting ideas. So these are all techniques that are helpful when writing descriptive pieces. If you're not clear on any of them, go and investigate further and make sure you have a collection of imagery and metaphors and similes that you can draw on and adapt in the exam situation. That's a top tip for you. A mnemonic to help you remember some of these techniques: posh jam. So personification, oxymoron. Onomatopoeia is another one. Sound effects can be great for creating a sense of rhythm and pace to your piece, but also to mirror meaning. Simile, hyperbole, juxtaposition, adjectives, and metaphor. So some of the techniques you want to try and incorporate in your descriptive pieces, as well as personification there at the end. I got that twice. Okay, success criteria. So we want to make sure you're using interesting vocabulary, engaging vocabulary, expressive sentences, and expressing emotions, ideas, and conveying what is thought and felt, showing, not telling. Right, a range of different sentence types. So you want to include both sort of simple and complex, maybe a couple of compound as well, but you want to have most of your writing in complex sentences with detail and exploring in depth and developing ideas. But you want to include some simple sentences as well, just to break up those longer sentences and create some variety and interest. We want to vary your starters. So think about using adverb openings, two adjective openings, connectives, similes, prepositions, and various verb forms, present or past verb forms to past tense verb forms to create interest there as well. And as I mentioned, you can have pre-prepared examples of figurative language that you can adapt to suit a range of questions. Examples of positive or negative imagery in similes and metaphors, for example, that relate to the weather, the sun, the clouds, the wind, the rain. This works really well, and you can adapt that to almost any outdoor setting. This helps to build mood and or reflect the narrator's thoughts and feelings, and can help show the narrator's thoughts and feelings rather than tell the narrator's state of mind and their emotional state. Different paragraph lengths also showing strong control of your writing. So single sentence paragraphs or even one word paragraphs can be quite effective there. Writing for the correct purpose. So again, if it's a descriptive piece, it should be descriptive. Narrative should be in narrative. So be clear on what those two different types of writing, what the features are of each of them. Use a range of descriptive techniques. We've covered some of those, and develop ideas fully. So quite often examiners comment on, that's what they want to see. They want to see well-developed ideas, not just sort of briefly sort of superficially explored and not in sufficient depth and detail. We want to have a clear structure for effect. Ideas and description should progress. So that's linking back to what I said about having a sense of movement in your piece, not seeing it as a static photograph, but more like a short piece of film with some variety of focus. Spelling, punctuation, and grammar, we want to make sure your tense use is consistent as well. So don't sort of start off writing in the present tense to give it a sense of immediacy, and then lapse and forget that you're writing the present tense and switch to the past tense, because that just weakens your response, and the examiner won't be impressed by that. Have a clear sense of mood and atmosphere. Use your vocabulary choices to convey that. Imagery. So that's the full range of sensory details, not just sight, which is the one that students tend to focus on, but think about what you can smell here in this environment or in this setting, what you can hear, what you can feel. So not just with your fingertips, but in the air or under your feet or in your hair. Try to capture the full experience and all the sensory details there. And as I said, varieties of focus. So zooming in for close-ups, panning, tracking shots, wide angle shots, the whole variety. Okay, so that's my top tips. Those are my top tips for you for descriptive writing. And a reminder that the Cambridge iGCSE English Language Exam Preparation course is still available, which covers all the key assessment criteria, all the skills for success. I go through past paper assessment tasks, walking you through how to produce an effective response with exemplars, which I look through against mark schemes, the corresponding mark schemes, to illustrate strong responses. And there is a ton of advice and guidance and tips in the course as well to help you maximize your marks for the exam. I'll see you again for another Cambridge iGCSE English Language Exam Top Tip soon.